welcome back. My name is India and I happen to read a lot, and we are in the month of love. I mentioned this very briefly in my February TBR, but I used to theme a lot of my TBRs, and February would always be the romance month. Just because I love love. I'm very much a daughter of Aphrodite. I love love. I love February. I used to be such a Valentine's Day hater. That has changed. And I can't go through a February without championing romance books in some way. And that is what this is. Today, I'm going to be recommending to you a bunch of romance reads for Valentine's Day. So if you're thinking of a last minute present for somebody, hopefully I've got you down. Okay, hopefully I have saved your Valentine's Day. You are welcome in advance. So I'm split this video into two parts, as I tend to normally do. I will give you 5 books that I have read and highly recommend, and then I will give you 5 books that I want to read that sound really, really interesting, just because I want to. But let's jump right in, and we're going to start off first off with the 5 books that I highly recommend. So here they are. A lot of these books are going to be books that you have heard numerous times on this channel, because if I love you and I love your book, I will champion it until the day I die. So we're going to start off first with, if you're a fan of historical fiction, or if you're a fan of horror and you're thinking to yourself, I want a really, really good romance, like a horror romance, because I don't really see that many out there, okay? I want to highly recommend to you a book that I actually read last month, which is The Possession of Alba Díaz by Isabel Cañas. I said in my January wrap-up how I was really enjoying the historical element, I was really enjoying the horror element, but it was the romance that elevated this book for me. It just added an extra little sprinkle of something. So focusing specifically on the romance in this book, we follow 2 characters. We follow Alba Díaz. She is a young woman who was adopted into a rich family, who has found out that basically they're in the process now of trying to find her a husband, and she's incredibly scared about basically being a vessel for a man to create heirs, and that she won't be able to live a life, and she won't love her husband, all of these different things. And she ends up, due to a plague in the city, going to a silver mine that her fiancé owns. In this book, she's orchestrated an arranged engagement with a good friend of hers that benefits both of them, right? And she goes to his silver mine, and it's there, well, just before, but it's there mainly where the romance takes place. But it's not with her fiancé, no. It is with her fiancé's cousin, whose name I have now forgotten, Elias. It's crazy that I read this last month. Anyway, Elias is the kind of black sheep of the family. He works in mercury and silver, and he's brought along basically to help the silver mine flourish. And it is there that he meets Alba, and their tension and their romance blossoms. Because nothing really draws 2 people together like a demon awakening inside of a woman and trying to take her over and kill everyone. If you want a sports romance, all of you are going to know exactly what I'm saying. Collide by Bal Khabra. This is a hockey romance, the Off the Ice series. There's 3 out at the moment. The 4th and final book comes out in August. This Off the Ice series is my favourite romance series and sports romance series. This follows, this is the first book. This follows Summer and Aiden. So bear with me, I'm so bad with names. It follows Summer and Aiden. Summer is a sports psychologist student, and Aiden is the captain of the hockey team. And basically they are forced together by their university to work together on her final dissertation, I think is what it is. And in the process, they fall in love. And I just want to say, it's really fucking good. It's got everything that you want. It's got great side characters, and I go on this rant every time, but I don't believe in your main characters if they don't have great family or great side characters. I've got to feel that the people surround them are well written, because it makes them seem more layered and more thought out and more fleshed out as characters. Anyway, great side characters, really, really good at having individual motivations for the characters. Way too many times have I read romance books where the goal basically is just the romance, and outside of the romance, you don't really know who the main characters are. Doesn't happen in this one. The spicy scenes are well written. That's all I'll say. The comedy is really, really good. If you want a good romance series and you want a good sports romance in particular, I would highly recommend this hockey romance. If you're looking for a cowboy romance to read, I haven't read many cowboy romances, so bear with me. This is the only one I've read, but I do really, really enjoy it, and I do think it's very good. It is Flawless by Elsie Silver. This follows Rhett and Summer. The Chestnut Springs series follows a group of brothers and their close family friends, and it's their romances. And this one, we follow the second eldest son, Rhett and the romance he experiences with Summer. In this book, Rhett fucks up and says some stupid thing that offends his community. And I want you to know that the stupid thing he says is that he doesn't care for like milk in a town that relies on cattle farming and cattle milk production. It was one of those weird ones. When I read it at first, it's like he said something offensive and I was like, oh no. And then I read it and it was about milk and I was like, okay. But it follows him who then has to go on basically he's a bull rider. He goes on this big bull riding tour and he ends up getting a PR lady to come in and basically look after his image because nobody's happy with him. And he falls in love with the PR lady. Her name's Summer. She's really, really great. Basically, same things that are why I really, really liked Collide. I think the family and all the side characters are very well thought out. I like the dynamic between the main characters. They have their own personal motivations outside of the romance. There's actually quite a sad backstory for Summer, which I hadn't really seen that much in romance when I read it. A lot of it is just like, I just want to do great at my job. In this, there was some really like quite dark moments in this, which I thought was quite interesting to read and not what I expected. I expected it to be kind of a spicy but cute romance, and then it got quite dark. And I was like, wow, the depth to this. I'll be honest, I wasn't really expecting it. But it's really, really good. I like, there's dynamic between the family / side characters. I think their chemistry is like off the charts. And I think the dialogue's really funny. So yeah, I think if you want to get into cowboy romances, this is a great place to start. It's where I started. If you are somebody that wants a kind of more workplace focused romance, I would highly recommend going off the broken path, going off the beaten path for maybe some readers, but I would highly recommend the Sweat and Soap manga. So this follows, such a suggestive cover, isn't it? Sweat and Soap, this is by Kintetsu Yamada. This follows Asako and Kotaro. Asako works for a company called Lilia Drop, which he obviously also works for. And she works in their finance department, but she's been a massive user of their products since before she worked in the company. She has an issue where she basically sweats a lot. Don't we all, girl? Don't we all? So she is a massive fan of these products because that really helps her manage that. And one day she's in the office and she bumps into Kotaro Notori. And Kotaro is one of the lead product developers for the company. He's the one that comes up with the brand ideas, with the scents. He is very much like a big ideas creation man, product development. And he's one of the head product developments in this company. And he walks past her and she smells amazing. And he basically is like, you are now my new muse because I'm getting amazing ideas for new products because you smell so great. And then they develop into a romance, and it's all about them navigating their own. They get together very quickly. So while in the other romance books you kind of wait halfway through for them to get together, in this one they get together by the first volume, and the rest of the series follows the development of their relationship and how they navigate working together and being in a relationship, and then just the general ups and downs of being in a relationship, moving in together, etc., etc. But this is really good. This, I will say, like definitely with Flawless and Collide, this is definitely more of an adult kind of book. There's some suggestive panels in there. I just want you to know, I would say it's more of like treat it the way that you would a smutty romance book, is what I'm saying in here. And then finally, I'm not a secondary school, high school romance person. I have moved away from reading romances where it's set in high school. Not for me. But I do love a university romance, as we know with Collide. But if you want another university romance that's not connected to sports, I would highly recommend my favorite graphic novel / manga from 2025. This is A Sign of Affection. This is by Sue Morishiita. This follows our two main characters, Yuki and Itsuomi. Yuki is deaf and Itsuomi is a polyglot. And it basically follows their relationship as Yuki teaches Itsuomi sign language and the development of their relationship. And again, it's just really, really nice. This one is obviously my fancy 3-in-1 version. I plan on reading, I can see literally right there on my desk over there, my second omnibus volume, because I'm reading that this month. But this is really, really good. Again, great communication. Personally, love the introduction of sign language, but in regards to the actual couple, really nice communication. I think their like moments together are really sweet. I love the jealousy trope, people. I can't say it. Does that make me messy? I don't know. But in this one, Yuki has a childhood friend who she kind of grew up with, who also knows sign language. And I think she had if I can remember rightly, because I did read this nearly a year ago, actually. He knows sign language. I think that she might have had a bit of a crush on him. It kind of didn't go anywhere. And he kind of showed her no like romantic interest until she ended up with somebody else. And now he's really jealous. And it's when he basically is coming in and being like, you're lost, dude. You fumbled. And I love stuff like that. I love it. But yeah, this is really, really good. I do prefer, obviously, romances with older characters because I'm 25. I don't personally want to read romances with 15-year-olds. It's not really my thing. But yes, this is just so good. And the anime is meant to be really good. I've not watched it, but it's really good. And I really like her. I think, you know, she's more of a shy character, which normally I don't really like manga female shy characters because it's like, girl, just do it. And maybe that's down to me, you know? But I really, really like their dynamic. It's really good. I'm excited to see their romance develop. So those were the books that I would recommend based on what I've read. And now we're going to dive into the books that I would recommend now we're going to dive into the books that I haven't read that I'm excited to read. And here we are. These are my want to read romance books. So the first one is apparently Sir Cameron Needs to Die by Greer Stothers. So this follows two characters, Marulo, a wizard sorcerer character, and Sir Cameron, a knight. But Sir Cameron is a very spoiled knight. He doesn't really go into battle because he's like, I've got to protect the face. I'm too handsome to do that. It's not for me. And the kingdom has been trying to destroy the evil mad sorcerer Marulo for ages. And out of nowhere, the church announces a new prophecy, which says the best way to kill Marulo is by killing Sir Cameron. And Sir Cameron's like, what the fuck? Why am I involved here? Jesus. And he does what any sane person would do and is like, best go to the evil sorcerer myself and just hand myself in and ask him to protect me. And that's exactly what he does. So he runs to the evil sorcerer Marulo and is like, help me, everyone's trying to kill me. And Marulo doesn't, out of, I guess, pity, I don't know, invites him in. And then apparently, according to this, turns him into a vulture. I don't know. Apparently, I think he turns him into a vulture, which I think is kind of funny. But then we have kind of a forced proximity situation where they're surrounded by everybody trying to kill both him and Marulo. And these two dudes are like, guess we got to live together and romance blossoms. It seems really fun. It seems really funny. I will say I am loving publishing at the moment. They're coming out with such exciting, slightly different romantasy books now. I think quite a lot of romantasy has kind of similar-esque plots. Now, I'm a romantasy fan, so this is coming from someone who loves the genre. But a lot of it tends to be kind of me and my enemy must work together to save the kingdom, and I'm the only one who can, and I have these powers that no one understands. In this, it's a spoiled as fuck knight that refuses to fight because he thinks he's so handsome, who force proximities himself with this evil sorcerer because he doesn't want to die. And then they fall in love in the process. I just think it's quite refreshing, it's fun, it's exciting. I've not really seen that be done before. And I also like how it's a romantasy where, like, obviously there's going to be we're trying to kill the sorcerer, but it isn't like wide trying to save the kingdom over a trilogy. It's like a fun, exciting, fresh, I believe, standalone. So this is exciting. I like it. It looks cool. Then we have The Everlasting by Alix Harrow. I am very shocked, to be honest with you, that I haven't read this already. This came out in October of last year and it was on my list. I just don't know why I hadn't read it. But The Everlasting is based on the short story The Six Deaths of the Saints by Alix Harrow, which I read, and it was genuinely as good as people say it is. It's so, so good. This follows Una. Una is this world-renowned hero who has songs and tales written about her. And there is a scholar called Owen who loves the story of Una Everlasting and has just fallen in love with Una as like a figure and a character. And I don't know exactly how, but it seems to be that I think he's the one. I think either he gets reincarnated or it's just him every single time, born again and again, telling her story to everybody. So I think it's a bit of a tragic romance. I don't actually know whether it has a happy ever after. So sorry in advance. But I think it's a cool timey-wimey thing about a historian and a hero. And the historian tells her story and they die multiple times. I don't really get it. But I've heard nothing but amazing things. To be honest with you, I am surprised I haven't read it yet. But I think it's one of those things where I'm trying not to read too much about it because I think apparently it's really, really smart with the timey-wimey stuff and I don't want to spoil it for myself too much. Moving on with more fantasy romance. This is actually my 26 for 2026. This is Paladin's Grace by T. Kingfisher. This is part of I can't remember what it's called, but at least one character in each dynamic of this 4-book series is a paladin. And I very nearly decided to play a paladin in my D&D campaign before I ultimately went for bard. And yeah, it's a darkly whimsical, cozy fantasy. So it follows perfumer Grace. One day, she is accosted by these ruffians, but is rescued by this really, really handsome paladin. He is known as a broken paladin, which basically makes me think that maybe he's lost connection to God, or his God has died. And he makes a living from knitting socks, incredible, and serving as a bodyguard. And then we follow these two. They witness an assassination attempt gone wrong, and they must navigate a web of treachery and poisoners while a cryptic killer stalks one step behind. So it's part kind of fun, fantasy politics, bit of mystery with a romance between a perfumer and a paladin who has lost his god. And I think that sounds really cool. And I love the cover. And I've heard nothing but amazing things. And it is a series of 4 books. I really, really like T. Kingfisher. I've read a lot of T. Kingfisher books. I have really enjoyed the small amount of romance we got in A Sorceress Comes to Call. So I'm hoping that a more romanced focused book I'm going to absolutely adore. Switching up with, it seems to be a lot of this is fantasy or fantasy adjacent. We have Good Spirits by B.K. Borison. Now, if any of you were on TikTok from like November to December last year, I felt like this book was everywhere. Absolutely everywhere. One of my colleagues actually read it very, very beginning of this year. And she said that she completely understands why everybody was so hyped out about it. This is a Christmas Carol retelling, and it follows Nolan Callahan, who is the ghost of Christmas past, and he falls in love with Harriet York, who is the Scrooge. Now, you must be thinking to yourself, India, how the fuck does that work? Because he's a ghost and she's a human. And I did ask my colleague, I was like, hey, how does it end? So I don't think you can truly spoil a romance, because 9 times out of 10, I mean, all romances really should have a happily ever after. I am questioning the everlasting romantic element, I will say. But all romances have a happily ever after. So when she told me how it ended, there is an element of like, I had to assume, you know? So I do know how it ends, but in a way where it's like, you have to know that that's kind of how it's going to end if it's a romance book, because all romances, in my opinion, should have a happily ever after. If it doesn't have a happily ever after, then it's a fiction book with romance. That's my hot take. To be truly a romance book, these two need to get together at the end, okay? But anyway, it's a Christmas Carol retelling where Nolan tries to make her, I guess, a good person, and they fall in love in the process, and then there you go. So I will be reading this in December, so we will hold out. I'll be reading this at Christmas. But it's just one of those things where it's like, what an interesting concept. And I do respect this, and I think she's just announced a second book. It's such an interesting concept, but also I'm just trying to think, how the fuck are you going to make a ghost and a human work, people? And lastly, because I didn't want to do another cowboy romance, though Lyla Sage is a cowboy romance writer as well, this is Soul Searching. This is kind of a speculative, spooky romance. So I think she's writing, this is a Sweetwater Peak series. I think she writes this series and then her cowboy series as well. But this follows 2 characters, Collins, Cartwright. I will give it to certain American/Canadian authors. The names that they choose for their characters is hilarious. First of all, if I read that, I'd assume this was gay. If I hadn't looked at the front cover and you told me the characters were Collins and Brady, I would have been like, oh my God, Lyla Sage is writing gay fiction, but she's not. It follows Collins, who moves back to her hometown after there are buyers for her family's antique store, and she is somebody's trying to buy her family's antique store, so she has to go back home to sort out what potentially could be the selling of her family business. And she also has the ability to commune with ghosts. While she's there, she rents out the spare room in Brady's house, and I guess there's a lot of ghost shenanigans while she's trying to sort out the selling of her family's antique store, Antique Scream Ghosts. I don't really know too much else, but this was another book that came out last year that everybody was raving about. I've not read any Lyla Sage. I've not read any of her cowboy books. I know that she writes cowboy romances, but I haven't read any of them. I just saw this Spooky Ookie one and was like, this sounds cool. So yeah. Lyla Sage also writes cowboy books, but if you aren't a cowboy romance fan, she writes Spooky Ookie ones as well. But anyway, that's it. Those are my Valentine's recommendations. I tried to do a lot more kind of across genre, just because I think that's fun as a fantasy reader. some of the best romances I've read have been in fantasy books, but I did try to focus it on fantasy books where the focus is the romance rather than like, hey, this is a fantasy book, but the romance in it's great, and then the romance is like every 5 chapters. That's not what you're going for a Valentine's Day rec. So yes, but if you've watched this, I hope you get something out of this. I hope I've saved you a good romance present. You should do one of those like book bouquets. I haven't ever had one. I think they're cool. You should do that. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe and all that fun stuff. And I have a very exciting video that I'm doing next week. The next video I'm doing is kind of one of those things, a redemption, if you will, hopefully, of a video that I did last year. And now that I feel I've got better quality stuff, I have a better idea, I think it'll be good. But see you later.